Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality Podcast. I'm Justin, aka the Garage Avenger. Have you got friends or family who think because you like to make things, you want to build them a shitty coffee table? Or do you feel guilty going to the store and buying something when you could have easily made it? Well, today I'm talking with Grant Alexander, a Canadian maker slash YouTuber, about knowing when and how to say no to those pesky in-laws or friends or family when they drop the bomb that they want you to build them something. And we talk about make versus buy, things you might want to consider when facing the choice of making over buying. And we're going to also talk analytically about looking at the pros and cons of making over buying and how that could possibly save your marriage by knowing when to buy instead of making that thing your wife or partner wanted. I hope you're going to enjoy this episode, guys. I hope you guys take some notes. Now let's get into the show. Today's guest comes from the capital of Canada, Ottawa, Ontario. I thought the capital was Toronto. Obviously, my grades were very low. His father got him interested in making, as a child, making toys that made his imagination run wild. Later, he got into cars and things that look fast, but the creativity wasn't there. So he started making in contrast. Welcome to the show, Grant Alexander.
Hi, thanks for having me, A. Sorry, I just had to say A because it's fun.
And about.
I say about. I don't know if that's whenever I hear them saying it, I'm like, that's not how I say it. But I don't know, maybe that's what they're talking about.
I see you did it. I'm on to you. All right, So Grant and I know each other a little bit from makers on Zoom drinking coffee. It's a bit of a gathering. It has mainly Americans, a little bit of the Canadians, can we say? And yeah, I'm going to say it's a mix of everyone. But, it's a group chat thing. So, we didn't really know each other that well, but at least we know of each other from the Zoom chats, which was kind of cool. Then I heard that you had started a podcast with Morley and Adam called Clamp. So that was really cool and great to see that you guys are continuing that. And then you just simply sent me a DM and you said, hey, can I be on the show? I think I got something to share. And so here you are. So it works, people. You just got to reach out. I will try my best to put you on the show if it's possible. So there we go. So today's topics, we're going to be talking about learning to say no. That's understanding and knowing when and how to say no to those, for example, pesky in-laws or friends or family that, ask you to build something that you really don't want to build. And then I think that's going to tie in nicely with our other subject, which is buy versus make. And finding that balance of knowing when to buy something over investing the time, energy, and everything else that goes into making it yourself. And hopefully we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of that epic battle that often rages inside our heads as creative makers and whatnot. But before we go into those topics, let's give Grant the microphone and he can tell us who he is and what he's all about.
Well, I'm Grant Alexander, and on the internet you can find me under the Grant Alexander because apparently my name's not unique enough. I started making, like Justin said, when my dad would take me out to his garage and we'd use his shopsmith. And the shopsmith's like a 5-in-1 tool. It has like a lathe and a table saw and a drill press and stuff. Anyways, and we made a nice little train and a biplane. But, I was pretty young at the time, so I was more of the hold on to this scrap piece of wood until I need it. But I got to see the things. And as time went on, I kind of put the making stuff into the background. I worked at a hobby shop actually, and I was making models and stuff, and got into cars, as Justin said. But I found it wasn't creative enough. You were just kind of like, I could take apart an engine and put it back together, but there's nothing creative about that. And I, I would I just felt myself yearning for more creativity. And my grandfather passed away and left me his table saw and some other tools. And that kind of started a shop in my garage, because a table saw takes up so much room. You have to dedicate at least one half of your garage to it. So now I'm on YouTube and Instagram and making stuff and hoping people out there get inspired by what I do.
What sort of stuff are you actually making, Grant?
For the most part, I make just stuff for my family or for my house. I make mainly stuff out of wood, not because I don't want to delve into other materials. It's just the easiest to work with and the most plentiful in my garage. I'd like one day to weld something together, but that's a whole nother avenue that I haven't tried yet. But I think one of the most proud things I am, for those who are watching instead of listening, there's a little sled that I made behind me hanging on the wall. I made that for my son. It's a nice little thing to use in the winter. I made a bunch of toys for him. That's always fun. So it's basically stuff for myself, my son, and my house.
I love it. Now, we got talking in our pre-pod about some of the stuff you make and how you would get asked by friends, or friends of friends, or family, or whatever, like, oh, could you make me one too? And you shared a story about, what was it? Was it like a play tower or something? What did you say it was?
It's they're called a kitchen helper, or Montessori stool, or there's like 100 different. Learning tower is another one. It was just like a fancy stool, step stool for kids that has like a railing built into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made it out of nice cherry and everything. You went all out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then was it like a friend or something of your wife said, "Hey, can you make me one?" And
yeah. So
did you cringe? I would cringe.
So I said it as nice as possible, which basically saying, like, for me to make one would cost more than you can buy them on Kijiji or at IKEA.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want a Grant Alexander original, I'll make one for you, but it's going to cost more. And I knew my wife's friend wasn't one of the types of people who's buying unnecessary hardwood stuff. She would be happy with plastic or plywood. And I'm more, if I'm going to make it, I want it to look real nice. So I kind of said as nicely as possible, like, I can point you to someone on Kijiji who can make it for you cheaper.
I would have just gone to IKEA, bought one, and then just peeled the labels off and given it to, I was like, there you go.
Yeah.
And charged double.
I should do that next time. But yeah, so that happens quite often, actually, that people see stuff I've made, and I don't know, some of it's them trying to be like, hey, I want to buy it if I want to give you the money rather than giving a stranger the money, which I completely understand, and I greatly appreciate it. But if I'm not interested in making it, it puts you in an awkward space where you got to say no.
Yeah,
or not.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to say no, isn't it? Because like, when, for example, you were telling me that you used to do airbrushing, right, on these RC cars, like custom paint jobs, and people started taking notice of what you're doing and said, hey, can you do this? And
right. So when I was in high school, I worked at a hobby shop and I raced remote control cars, and I would paint my own cars. And then I even started a business. It was that was my fun thing. And I went, I could turn my fun thing, something I enjoy, and something that, like, I'm doing for fun anyways, I'll turn that into a money-making endeavor. And so I even like this. I was in high school and I had access to the full Photoshop suite. And so I made up this really cool poster and I photoshopped a couple of my examples of cars I'd done in it. And I posted it all around the hobby shop that I worked in. And I was advertising, trying to get clients. And every time someone would ask me to do something that wasn't like, hey, here's free reign on make me something cool or make me something like you've already done. If it was something like one person wanted a waving American flag, and I just didn't have any desire to do an American flag. And that was that ended up being the last commission I ever took. But, it was just stuff like that where I just go, I realized I really enjoyed the airbrushing. I really didn't enjoy taking commissions. And it was, hard lesson because it was good money. Like you can charge a good amount of money to do something for someone that when they don't have the capabilities of doing it. But I realized that I wasn't motivated by money. And it was something, as a 16-year-old who wants to, buy new wheels for his car. It's one of those hard lessons that are, it's hard to say no to money.
Oh, completely. And like I think we've all fallen into those traps. Like I remember being asked to do projects and I'd say yes all the time. Like this guy not that long ago asked me to build this thing called asked me to build a sofa beer fridge.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Could you kind of explain it to me?
Oh yeah, well, and I tell you, in some ways it was great because it pushed me out of my comfort zone, really like tested me, but it was twice as stressful as it should have been for a project because there was always like I've got to deliver it to somebody and I've got to have it work and function as it should. And I don't want them calling me every 5 minutes saying it's not working again, what do I do? So I had to not only build it, but I had to build it well so that it didn't break down and I get annoyed every 5 minutes getting calls. So it was incredibly stressful for me. And in some ways, like I avoided it, like by starting a podcast.
Well, yeah, and I completely get where you're coming from because that's the same sort of things I would have. I would start doing a paint job, and once you start it, if you screw a little bit up, you basically have to restart. So your stress level is way higher. If I screw up one for myself, I just finish it off. It looks like garbage, and I go on with my day, right? I'm going to paint another one later. It's just no big deal. But if I screw up one for a client, now all of a sudden, now I have to go and buy a new body and repaint it because the way that RC car bodies are is you paint the inside of them. So when you screw it up, you can't undo it. So basically whatever you screwed up, you've done that forever now. So that's that is like, there's the stress level. And it didn't seem to matter how much money someone was willing to give me. It didn't change my willingness to want to do it. And I later realized that, what I prefer doing is making stuff. And if people want to buy it, they can. If people don't want to buy it, then they don't. And I just keep it, and that's fine with me. Like I have a bunch of candle holders over here behind me for those watching, not those listening. And I made a whole bunch of them out of burl. They're maple burl, and they got live edges on them and stuff. They're really kind of cool looking, I think. I have a video on it. It's pretty simple, but and I brought them to a craft show, and I sold 2 out of the 5 I made, and I was totally fine with that. I took the other ones home, obviously, and I'm happy with that. It's the big difference between it's not even making stuff for other people, but it's making stuff to other people's specifications, where I think gets me constricted in my mind.
Yeah, and like I definitely feel like that with all my projects that have someone else sort of restricting the ideas a little bit, because you really can't have free will to be fully creative. Though I would say, when you do get a request and you feel you have to say no, have you found a way to sort of like say it nicely or find a way to like present it so they don't feel so bad, I guess?
So basically, I have three different ways that I can say no. Uh, the first is just I'll say I'm busy, and a lot of times you can like just say I'm just too busy. I'm very sorry, and people go, "Oh, I get you. I'm busy too. That's why I wanted you to make it for me." The second one is oftentimes people are contacting me like right now. What's blown up are these charcuterie boards. They're on. I have a YouTube video about it. They're just big, giant pieces of live edge walnut, and people are contacting me and trying to get me to do it. And I just kind of go, they're not anywhere close to me, and these things are very large, so they're not economical to ship. So I basically just say I can point you to someone closer, and with like the little maker community that I have, I try and pair them with someone that's closer, and they usually either say yes and I do, or no and I go about my day. And the third is I give people a price of something that they shouldn't say yes to, the go away price. And even though I'm not motivated by money, I just, that's my like, I want to be nice, but not, I don't want to do the project, but if they're willing to pay this much, I'll suck it up. Right. So I give them the go away price.
I found that honesty for me works the best. So I'm straight into it. I'm just like, hey, can you build me this thing? And I'm like, you know what? It's not really my thing. No. I'm kind of into pushing myself outside of like doing something crazy. If you want something like that made, I can like help you find someone that would do that, kind of be like helpful at the same time, right? But I think honesty is the best policy for me, at least anyway, because I'm also not going to elude people. Like, word will get around eventually that Justin doesn't do just everyday kind of projects, so people will stop coming to me with everyday, kind of boring projects. But, at the same time, like if I was going to do a project for someone like a sofa beer fridge, right? I think I remember saying to the guy I was building for, like, he just wanted a fridge in his sofa that you kind of like open the lid and you just grab the beer out and then you close it again. And I said like to him, like, isn't that a bit boring? Can't we like, shouldn't it like deliver beer on voice control and whatever? So in the end, why I said yes is because I was able to put my own take on it. Like I was able to make it my own. And I also was very clear to him that whatever wishes or wants he had were just wishes or wants. But I wasn't necessarily going to fulfill those. And I made it very clear. Like, I just said, I'm going to make it the way I think is going to work. I'll do my best. If you're happy with that, we'll go ahead. And he's like, yep. So that's what happened.
So it sounds like you got excited about a project and the other person said, I'm excited with you.
Right. Exactly right. Actually.
Right. And that's what gets me going about a project. I do some commissions. They're not a lot, but it's when someone is excited about something and I'm on board with their excitement.
Yeah, well, because it's very funny with this guy, I ended up being more excited than him because I came up with this crazy idea that I'd never ever tried before. And I was like, I wonder if I can pull this off, and gave him the whole spiel and how I thought I could do it off the top of my head. And it turned out to be completely different. But that's how it is. That's how a project is. But he gave me a way to make it my own. Gave me a way to, well, I insisted that I had full creative control over it. And
the only thing that he needed was sofa and beer fridge, and the rest was you.
Yeah. And then of course he like I was able to make a video from it. So like that helped me as well. It was like, okay, I'm gonna build this epic thing. and most will like document it as well, right? So
Yeah.
I think they were the things that allowed me to say yes, like those three things.
Well, so even this charcuterie board, I made it for someone else, and it was because I knew it would be a good video,
Yeah.
right? So when I knew if someone's going to ask me to do something, I have to know I'm going to get more than the money out of it. The money didn't like matter as much as the like. I know I constantly undercharge if I'm doing it for a video because I'm getting something out of it too.
Mm.
But you know, I knew that would be a good video. Then I'm taking it on. It got me like sort of excited, and I wasn't hoping to make a whole bunch of charcuterie boards. I know that's what some people want, um, but yeah, so it's a lot like you.
But then you go to the shops, and then you see something that you could easily make, and
Right.
your wife's saying, "Can't we just buy this? Wouldn't that be nice in our house?" Uh, and
All the time.
you get that feeling inside, don't you?
Well, so, and this is actually like an interesting thing is I need to learn. So that happens every time, and then I go, no, I can make that, right? Oh, one of our dining room chairs broke the other day, and I'm like, I can make a new dining room set. That would be a fun video. And I also know that'll be on the bottom of the list for a long time because there's so many other projects I have going around the house. But I know I'm not going to buy a dining room set. I know this. I will be making one day, right?
Right.
But what I really need to learn how to do is say no to myself.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I think that's part of I need to, like do all the mental math on why to buy or why to make, but including in that and it's okay to say no to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, how does that feel for you when you're like sitting there looking at something and you know that you could make it, but deep down you know you shouldn't make it?
It's the hardest decision because I think part of it is like a lot of things I make because I want to save money, right? Because my hobby time is free to me. Like anytime I get to spend building is actually like mentally makes it my life better, right? So if I'm spending that time out in the garage making stuff, I'm going to be a happier person. So that's kind of priceless. So then that's like a thing that I think is the problem with all the math is I go, but if I could build that, I'd be so happy. Right. I look at whatever it is. I'm looking at like, we have a plastic and I hate it. My wife got it for free on Facebook Marketplace, a little children's like chair and table set.
Yeah.
It's made of plastic, like Fisher Price, and it was free, so it doesn't look nice. It's a little beat up, but it works, obviously. But I said, no, don't get that. I'm going to build one. And now we have one for free. But the big thing is I wanted to look at that every day and go, I made that for my son. It makes me happy. And now I look at a plastic one every day and go, like, there's no feelings there instead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's certain places for projects like that. So like, for example, I made a TV cabinet that was very different to most. It was a vertical TV cabinet, like lies flat on the wall. So it sticks out by around 100 millimeters out from the wall. So it's not very, chunky, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And I felt like, I made it out of solid walnut. It looks beautiful, put a lot of detail into it, but it's so simple at the same time. And I get immense amount of pleasure looking at it after the kids have scraped it with toys and, all the all the other things that happen in life. And my wife bloody lights a bloody candle underneath it, and then it drips wax all over it. So yeah, like that's part of the project.
Right. So
bring it to your family to use, right?
Right. And I think part of it, I go back to my dad, and he made all the stuff around our house. Right. Like when we got a new TV, what he did is he made something like what you made, where it's very vertical and is built into the wall. So the TV actually hugs into the wall, right? And it's actually built a little bit into a closet so that there's enough room. So
Hmm.
if you look on the closet on the other side, you see a couple inches of wood sticking out, but it's all built in so that it's almost flush with the wall and it fits the TV perfectly. And he built it with the sound bar in mind, and he bought the sound bar, and it fits everything so nice, right? And he easily could have bought a TV stand, right? Like anyone can, but you'll never get it perfect, or almost never get it perfect.
No.
And I think that's another thing is I look at stuff and I go, if I'm going to build it, I want to make it awesome, and I want to make it work perfectly for what I want. And I think that stops me a lot of times from even starting a project, because I go, I don't know exactly what, like, I can't see the future in my head sometimes. And I go, I don't know what I'm going to want in the future. Right. Like I have a 50-inch TV, but what if tomorrow the 52-inch TV goes on sale, or 60-inch TV goes on sale? Then I'll have to remake this entire thing. So I might as well just not make it.
Yeah.
Right. And I do that like math in my head way too much. Like I think into the future for all the possibilities instead of just going, you can make things. So just, you can make it again.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, though, correct me if I'm wrong, is like you invest so much time and energy and love and passion into a project. It's like sometimes when you have to redo it because you bought a new TV, it's not the same, right? It's maybe not quite the same energy that goes into it as when you first started that project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that. But I mean, do you ever find that like you can? I find that I justify simple things like small bits of IKEA furniture and things like that. I was like, I have no interest in building it because I can't make it cheaper. Neither can I make it better. Neither could I make it my own because I don't have an idea yet of how to make it my own.
That is almost always why I buy stuff. And I do buy, when I buy stuff, I buy the cheapest stuff. I go, I know one day I will replace this.
Mm,
I don't know with what yet, but one day this little piece of IKEA will turn into something nicer. Right. So I buy something cheap. Like I bought a little TV stand from IKEA, and it was cheap and it held up my TV for a while. And now I got rid of that TV. And now it's just a shelf that I put my kids' toys on. But it's like, it was $35. I went, I don't think I could buy the wood to make this for $35. So I'm totally with you on that. And it's fine. It's functional. I think that's the problem is I never want anything that I build to just be functional. I want it to be extra.
yeah, I think we're all everyone listening to this, I'm sure has that same feeling. Like they just want it to be a little bit more special than what you can buy at the store, right? And I think that's where like I weigh it up often is just knowing that right now I can't make it special, so therefore I would justify spending the money to keep the wife happy that she has somewhere to put her bloody phone or books beside her bed, like that sort of thing.
Right.
I kind of deal with it, but at the same time, like I I can't justify that because I go like it's bloody, what do they call it, hard waste, throw out day, and everyone's throwing all this like hardwood furniture and stuff out on the street, and I'm like, oh, like I should get my car and just like drive along the street, go for a hunt, like see what's out there. And it like really hurts me that people are throwing out all this stuff. And I like I want to take it in and like kind of fix it up and make it my own, just to spite those people that were throwing it away who thought it was nothing.
Right. And my where I live is right beside a college. Like I can see the college from my house, and at the end of semesters and at the beginning, for some reason it happens in both times, you get so in like August and September, you end up getting everyone throwing out either the end of their thing and they don't want to get it back home, or the beginning, whatever was left over, they just throw all that stuff out. And if you want to see a video of some of the stuff people throw out, Matthias Wandel used to live in my neighborhood. and he put together a video of him going around and actually picking up trash from it. But I go by it, and like sometimes I see some amazing furniture, and sometimes I brought it home, but not always, and not as much anymore, because you end up spending so much time like I'll see solid wood, like a solid wood dresser, and I go, I could like break that down, sand off all the finish, blah 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 blah, turn it into something different, right?
Yeah.
Or even I could just refinish it, because they're never perfect, right? No one's throwing out brand new perfect pieces of furniture. They're throwing out stuff that needs a little love.
Mm.
So what I always end up doing is I do some math in my head, and if I'm going to make something, I'm almost always going to go to the store and buy wood rather than trying to reclaim wood. And I don't like it. I don't like that part of me, but I just go, I don't have enough time to build the project and reclaim the wood. I have enough time to do one or the other. So I either build up my wood supply by reclaiming this project and then I have nothing to show for it, or I buy new wood and I build the project.
Mm. What about all like what are the pros and cons, do you think, of making overbuying something? Like, let's talk about the pros first. Like, what are you gaining by like seeing that thing in the store and saying, nah, screw it, I'm gonna go home and build it?
So for me, when I finish making something, no matter what it is, I want to go look at it. I every time I see it, I go, wow, I made that, right? So like I have like this little euphoric sense every time I see, like, I can't believe that these hands made that thing,
Mm.
right? And you can't get that from making. So that's like one big pro to me, is I go, I if I make it, I'll be happier than if I bought it.
Yeah. You don't buy something from the cheap store and then, like, for example, what I do, right? Like, if I've hit a bit of a milestone in a project, I'm quite chuffed with myself. I'll be finished for the night. I think I told you this in the pre-pod. Like, I switch off the lights, I walk out the door, I close the door, I open the door again, I switch on the lights, and I just stand there and look at it and just be like, ha, look at that. This is just amazing.
Right.
Like,
I get the same way sometimes, because I don't always have enough time to finish a project, and I might be weeks between them. And I'll just go out into the garage if I have 5 minutes and just look at the half finished project and go, that's coming together. I like it. And then go back into the house. Right. Like, yeah, there's those moments are like, you can't put a price on them.
yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, when you decide to take a project on and make it over buying it, there may be some elements that you've never done before. So you gain skills, right?
Right. And that's like the reason I do this as a hobby, is to learn new things and to try and be creative. Because if I'm trying to replicate something else, it's because I don't know how to do it. Right. So I've in the beginning, like the sled, I bought plans. I built the sled. That gave me some skills. I now understand how things go together, and glue is stronger than screws. Didn't know that at the beginning. Um, that kind of stuff. And now I just look at something and I go, I think I can make something like that. Or like Jimmy Dressa did. He did that Sam Aloof rocking chair recently.
Hmm.
He didn't want to look at any plans. He went, I've seen them before. I want to build one. And that's what I want, I've seen that before. I'll just go and build it. And my learning tower is the same thing. I saw tons of them and I went, I think I can build one, right? Like, I don't need anything beyond, I saw a picture of one. It's in my head now. I'll draw it out because I need to. But so there's something about like exercising my creativity that I don't get to do if I just buy it.
Of course, yeah. Because, like, once you bought it, and maybe you have to screw some screws in, and that's it, isn't it? Like, then the kids destroy it.
Yeah.
It's part of it. And I think too, like, also making overbuying, despite the fact that you probably have to buy like finishes and you have to buy wood and you have to buy like a whole heap of hardware, maybe, or all that. In some other weird way, it's like slowing consumerism a little bit, right? At least mass consumerism,
I think it's also you have the potential if you make something to make it an heirloom thing.
Hmm.
So I have a coffee table my dad made in high school shop class.
That's awesome.
So he's 60 something now.
Hmm.
So 50 years ago, well maybe between 40 and 50 years ago this coffee table is made. It's mahogany. It's it's a very simple coffee table, but it's, I don't think, well, I could probably make it now, but when I started this woodworking journey a few years ago, this making journey, I couldn't have made it. I couldn't have replicated it without his assistance, right? Like, so I just think that's kind of a cool thing to look back and go, I hope one day that my son gets it, and it's like, and he can say to his friends, "My grandpa made this," right? When he was in high school. Can you believe it? He was in high school and he made this, and they'll look around and they'll stop staring at their phones for 3 seconds and go, "Yeah, it's cool," and then whatever.
It's so true. Yeah, so Joe, like I think that's probably gonna be the same for like, the soapbox cars and things that I've built for my kids. They'd be like, look, kids, this is what my dad, your grandfather built for me. And like, yeah, whatever. Like, where's the VR?
Right.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it fly?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen Colin Firth's hoverbike. What is it? Why didn't he build that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so there's that heirloom aspect to it that I don't think you can get from buying it. You can buy really nice stuff, like the desk that I have that I use every day was my nana, so my mother's adopted mother, and she bought it, but it's been in the family so long that it's becoming an heirloom. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yep.
It's like solid oak, and I like it. I like the feel of it, but I also get it's not. Nobody made this, so it doesn't have the same part of my heart that the coffee table does.
Exactly right. Yeah. And too, like you sort of talked about as well, like you by making it, you also get the chance to like teach others and inspire others through making a video, right?
Exactly. And if you buy something and you just do an unboxing video, you might actually get more views somehow. I don't
Yeah,
understand how that's possible, but
so true.
but but you're not inspiring anyone, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Well, what do you think the cons are though, like of like making over buying?
well, the big one is the time. If you buy something, you have it. It's done. It's yours.
Mm,
You've got it. It's done. You go home, you start using it. Unless it's IKEA, a few hours later, you start using it.
mm.
Um, when you compare that with making it, even the smallest projects, they take way longer than whatever it took to buy it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think too, like you sort of mentioned it though earlier, is like the fact that you feel like the time is sort of there's no monetary value on that time. It's your time to feel like free and yeah, alive and like it's your I want to say the Norwegian word, which is kosetid, which is like it actually translates as cuddle time. But it's kind of you can kind of see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
But, and that's true. And I think it's like one of those things that you kind of go when I'm out there. The big like for a con is I might think I'm going to build something. Like in 2016, I tore out a wall between two bedrooms of my house. It's 2020. It's still not done. Right. Yeah, I didn't hire a contractor. I tore out the walls. I built up, I rebuilt everything so that's one big master bedroom, but I'm still not complete. Um, because I kind of get like I gain and lose inspiration for projects. So when I first did it, I was super inspired. Like it's literally coming up November 2016 is when I did it.
Yeah.
I was so inspired. I literally like pulled the dresser full of clothes, like hulked it out of the room into the spare bedroom by myself so that I could tear out this wall. And now, like, I can barely go up there and just like, I just look at it and go, like, yeah, I'll get to it later. So there's like, the con is if you decide to make it, you might not finish it, or you might not finish it in a timely manner.
Yeah, because to not only just that, I mean, like you may not finish it, or you may completely screw it up. Like you might balls it up, as I say. Like
Yeah.
so, and you have to deal with that fact that you used all that time, to make something and it didn't work out at all, and you end up going back to the store just to buy the one that you
Right. Or you
because you
hire
have to.
someone to finish whatever you started and
Right.
they charge you the same price as if you had started from the beginning because
Yeah.
they're not taking on half finished projects.
Yeah, and that hit to the ego, oh, that's the
Oh,
worst.
yeah.
Yeah. But what the other thing I think not a lot of us are sort of talking about is the fact that the the con to making overbuying is that sometimes the product you could buy could be actually better than the one you make.
The,
Maybe.
you
You
know
just
what?
right.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially when you start thinking about things like how they can do like plastic stuff. Sometimes plastic is better than
Mm,
whatever you could make in wood. It's
yep.
lighter weight, it's stronger. The way they've made it just fits perfectly wherever you needed it. And if you make wood, you're gonna have to account for wood movement and stuff like that. So sometimes the materials you got to buy it because you can't make something that's as good as those materials allow.
Mm.
So that's a really good point. Or just they've made so many of them that they do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, and that also leads to the mass produced stuff, right? They mass produce it. It's they've thought out the design, they've come up with a good design that works and can be mass produced, and they can sell it for cheap. Whereas if you're making a one off. You probably have to buy a whole heap of materials that you didn't have before, maybe even tools. You invest a lot more time and money and energy into building it. You probably just should weigh up whether the benefits of like the satisfaction of building your own thing, outweighs that outlay of tools, time, and money, right?
Completely.
Mm.
It's something I'm going through right now where I want to build my son a backyard like play area, like a playground structure kind of thing. And I know that if I buy one, it's going to have almost all the things I want, and it's going to be all set up, and boom, it's done, and it'll be great. And whatever I design might be better, or it might be way worse, and it might not even be safe for him to go on. So it's
Yeah,
one of those things that I got to go like, I really got to either spend a ton of time designing this really well or buy one.
right. I think that's the ultimate question that you need to sort of battle with yourself, and weigh up those pros and cons. And the majority of us probably the projects that are going to be fun for us are beneficial to do ourselves. But the ones that are not fun for us and is maybe just ticking off a box, for the wife or whatever, I think for me personally, I don't know about you, Grant, but I just leave them alone. I'll just let the wife buy it, or go find it on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's like make something. David Picciuto, he talks about how he doesn't like making furniture for his shop, right? And I
Mm.
get that. If it doesn't inspire you, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, I have to get it done to like have a house for my tool. But, you can go and buy a bunch of shop furniture and put it in there.
Mm.
So that's one of those things. Like if it doesn't inspire you and you're hating yourself through every moment of it, buy it. Right. Like
Yeah.
do the thing that inspires you because that's why you're in this hobby. In my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I'm contemplating building a new workbench, but of course, I want to put my own take on it. I'm a really tall dude, and I like working on big projects sometimes. And that means sometimes I'm like hunched over it or whatever because the bench height is fixed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I want to make an adjustable height bench that's solid as hell that you can actually work on, right? You can
Yeah.
smash hammers on it, you can chisel, you can plane, you can do whatever you want on it. It's solid as a rock, but at the same time goes up and down. So,
But you're inspired. I can
right?
hear it in your voice.
Yeah,
You're
exactly,
in
right?
right. It's not like something you go, I have to make a workbench.
No, exactly. And
Right?
I think I'm more inspired about like the mechanical side of it. Like, how am I going to do this on the cheap? Because that's what I'm going to do. How am I going to make a mechanism that keeps this thing super solid and stable, keeps it even, comes up evenly at the same time, and level, and a myriad of other things, So the list, this is going on and on and on in my head all the time about like these ideas, and I get excited about it. And that's the challenge for me, is the exciting bit. Like, oh, I haven't thought about that factor. Well, this is a fun project, like I haven't come with the solution yet.
Yeah. Well, even just you saying like a raising and lowering, but you want it to be stable, it makes me think scissor jack. It's like the first thing I think about, right?
100%. And
But it's
but I
probably not going to be good enough.
Well, I mean, like a lot of those have been done, and you can they have their problems because they sway, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, so I was weirdly thinking about like a self-leveling hydraulic system.
I like self leveling. So basically, go to an RV yard. I don't know if you guys have them, like a junkyard for RVs, and
Oh
get one of
yeah.
those Winnebagos that has that system already built in.
Hmm. Or I could just
Boom. Just
build my own with
wait, you
all
can build your own, sure, but this way, you could save one from going to the junkyard. No.
that.
If you can't build your own, kind of like the fridge happened, there you've now got an idea of where to go to find one.
Damn straight. Like I should just get one of those. I should get just four massive hydraulic cylinders from like a crane
Yeah,
stabilizing thing, and just like.
exactly. I love it. That'll be solid.
I've just got to find me some cranes that are broken down. Uh, anyway, um, we actually were just talking about ideas and like making sort of how you come up with an idea and then push it through to like hopefully making it reality. Do you have a do you do you have a process of like coming up with an idea and then pushing it through all the barriers to end up with a result you're happy with?
So if I have a creative process and it's kind of a jumble of how my brain works. But if I want to get something done, I have to write it down. I have to break it down into the little tiny milestones that I can check off a list. If I want to get something done, that's how I have to get it done. That's not how it's maybe not the most creative way of getting things done in my mind, but it's that like I have to, if I need to get something done, it's X, Y, Z. This is how I've thought it all out. Boom. But if I want to be creative about something, it's a little bit different where I go, I'm here. I don't have a thing. I want to be there. I have a thing. How do I get there? And I just experiment and I do iterations of things. So a good like project that I have is I had a, for a long time in my head, a thought of I wanted to put a BMW front grille on the wall as lights. And all I had is I had the front grille. So I already had like those actual parts. And I went from there, how do I get that into being a light? And so what I did is I kept like having it around and like walking by and thinking about it. And then one day I was just like, I'm going to try and do some kerf bending and see if that can give me the radius I needed to make it look like the front grille. And it worked. And thankfully it did, because I ended up entering it in a contest and getting runner up. But I was like super jazzed that I just tried this out. It worked great. And I just kept going with it and trying different things. I built in two halves, which then, makes it harder to put together. But, doing it in two halves made it nice, because then I only had one time that I could screw up, as opposed to if you try and build the whole thing at once, you kind of, anyways, I made a whole video about it and you can kind of see how I progressed. But I think the big thing is like, I either have to write it all out or I have to do iterations until my mind sees the way forward.
I like what you talked about there, where like you had it around and you're just looking at it, because that's sometimes what happens. Like you have like a half idea of what you want to do, and then you have like a core element of that that's always visually there. It'll send you like mental like triggers to like start thinking about ideas, and maybe an idea you had for another project literally half an hour ago, and then you walk past that and you're like, oh my god, how did I not see that idea could fit with this,
Right.
and that it all fits together, right?
And that's, I believe in the unconscious mind being way more powerful than the conscious mind. And that's exactly why I do that. It's the same reason why when I was in school, I would read through the entire test before I started, because my unconscious mind is thinking about those problems I read and it's trying to solve them.
Yeah.
And as I got to them, I knew reading them at first, I went, I think I can solve this. I'll come back to it though. And later the unconscious mind would say x plus x squared plus y squared equals c squared or whatever. And it would go, oh, okay, great, I got it. But that's it. That's the thing. And for this, sorry, I'm pointing over to it because it's literally on the wall behind me. That project is actually, when I later thought about how did I actually come up with this, it's almost exactly like a friend of mine from Preston from Urban Shopworks. He made a shelf, like a coat rack that looks almost exactly like this, made out of kerf bent plywood and everything. And I went, that's how I came up with it. Is that, I saw that like a year ago in his shop up in the Yukon, and eventually that permeated, and I kept looking at these lights until eventually those two things came together and I made that.
Right. There's always those triggers there. I mean, you talked about your friend, in the Yukon, and he made something similar. Are there any other like creative heroes out there that inspire you with the work they're doing?
So there's so many to talk about, but if I wanted to just grab one person that I felt like is very inspirational to me today, I'd probably have to say it's someone like Brett McAfee from Skull and Spade 13. Why I'm inspired by it is, well, one, he was just on your show and his whole story was inspirational. But before I even knew that, I just really liked how his thought process was, think big picture, but also concentrate on the details, right? So you got to think about both ends of the spectrum if you want to make really good and engaging content on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, he's also bucking a bit of a trend, like his last couple of videos being quite long, and very intricate and very little talking in them as well. So like, they're kind of like different to what a lot of other people are doing. And I think the fact that he has a lot of people like jumping on board and seeing what he's doing, I think is great. And I truly love talking with him I spoke with him nearly, it would have been easily like 4 hours, over 4 hours. I spoke with him on this podcast and the and the pre-podcast. And there's so much I couldn't put in this podcast for you guys, like so much, and it's so unfair that I couldn't do it. I feel very privileged to have heard a lot of the nitty-gritty stories that, in the end he didn't want to share with you guys because he just thought it wasn't his place. But, at the same time, it just made me really realize that this guy has pushed himself beyond what most of us have done, and put himself in the position he is now. So I think it's really great. I think good shout out. Let's get into the rapid fire 5. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Fill in the blank. Creativity is
when you make ideas reality.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was like my joke answer. It's a great answer, but it's obviously like the title of the show. And I use it if you listen to Clamp, you'll hear us say it, and then we call you out because you stole like the. Well, you didn't steal. You came up with an amazing title for a podcast, but it's creativity is, your mind trying to do something that doesn't exist. That's my.
I think it's a little bit of the opposite for me. Like, I think when you talk about that, it made me immediately think like, well, the things exist. It's about putting two ideas that exist to make a new idea that doesn't exist. I think
yeah, exactly. It can be like putting two ideas together, but it's also people come up with stuff that never existed before.
Yeah.
And that's like, there's so many different creative ways about going at it. Yeah.
What's something people get wrong about you?
My age. Honestly, I still get ID'd to this day. I'm 36, I think. And a lot of people think I'm way younger, but they clearly don't see the bald spot. So if you watch the YouTube videos, you see the bald spot, you know it.
Is that why you grew a scummy beard?
You know what? I still got ID'd with the beard, and I go like, what do I have to do to get ID'd less now than I was underaged? Like when I was like 18, I could get away with not getting ID'd, which is like under the age here. And now that I'm 36, I know that times have changed and they ID a lot more, but I just think it's funny that I get ID'd way, way older than I need to be.
Well, yeah, they may be checking if you're actually legit. Like, are you really coming in here? You're 36, bro. Like, this is an 18-year-old's bar. Like, what are you coming in here for?
Okay, I don't get ID'd at bars, but I don't go out because of pandemics. But no, it's just at the beer store. Or a couple years ago, I used to smoke, and I'd get ID'd for that.
Hilarious.
But I don't smoke anymore. So for all you people out there, you can also quit. It is possible.
Yes, people, don't smoke. I've never smoked in my life, so I don't plan to start. But
if you do start, you can quit.
I imagine I weirdly had a bad day the other day, and I was thinking about it. I was like, that's when you need a cigarette. Like, I can see that, right? Why people, when they have like a bad day, they just sit back and they smoke a cigarette, take a cup of coffee, and just chill out for 5 minutes whilst that's happening. And I definitely got that. Like the other day, I was like,
that was the major reason. That was the big thing to me, is I can get 5 minutes to myself. Or sometimes you can go 5 minutes with a friend, right? And go have a cigarette with a friend. But you can also just go, I'm just going to go for a smoke. I'll be back. Right? Like, that's the part I miss, is the ability to say, I need 5.
Yeah.
If you say, I need 5 minutes to have a cigarette, everyone goes, no problem, go have a cigarette. You say, I just need 5 minutes, everyone's like, for what?
Yeah, what do you yeah.
What do you need 5 minutes for? I'm like, yeah.
It's so true. Wow. All right. Well, let's get on with question 3. What is your favorite thing to do when you're not being creative?
So if I'm not being creative, I think about that as like trying to relax to the max, and then I watch Netflix. But or like some other TV show. But I like TV over movies, and I'm a weirdo for that. But I find that movies aren't long enough. And just when you're getting into this, like, oh, I like this. I like that character and that character too, and then it's over. So other than like the whole MCU kind of thing, I really enjoyed that. But that was like watching a TV series where the episodes were just really long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So otherwise, I play some video games. Not much. I try not to.
What project is completely priceless that you'd never sell?
So I thought about this one a lot, because there's a lot of projects that I would say I would never sell, but then also I've never been in a position where I felt I needed to sell things. So I'm going to try and answer it in a different way and go, what would be the last project I would sell? And I would have to say it would be my kid's toys. Like, just about any toy that I made for him, I would sell all of his other toys before I sold the ones I made for him.
Yeah.
So, but like that seems like a really silly thing to say because he's going to grow out of them. He's already grown out. Like I made him a little rattle for when he was like, a real baby. He's grown out of that. He doesn't play with that at all. And that's fine. Like I'm totally, but why wouldn't I just sell it now? Like if someone offered me money for it, I don't know. This is a hard one because it's one of those ones where you kind of go, in reality, I don't want to sell any of my projects,
right?
But if it came down to it, like you either eat this week or you sell one of your projects, I'd sell them all.
Exactly right. Yeah, I get that.
It's a hard one.
Let's go into the last question, the hard one. It is hard because I mean, happiness looks different to everyone. So, what does happiness look like for you?
A warm fire with my family.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. That's a good picture to see. I think family is important. So, thanks for sharing, man. So in this episode, we talked quite a lot about saying no to projects. So, if you're dealing with those pesky in-laws or people hassling you about building something, I hope you got something from this episode about saying no to them if you really feel like it's not going to benefit you. And then, of course, making versus buying. I think a lot of us all have these issues with making and buying things, what we should make, what we should buy. And hopefully Grant and myself, hopefully as well, has come up with some way to help you guys make those decisions when you're standing there and your wife's yelling at you at the store saying, why can't we just buy this thing? But I can make it. And, maybe I'll help you. This episode will help your marriage. Who knows? Grant, where can people find you, mate?
All right. Well, you can find me everywhere on the internet by searching The Grant Alexander. And if more than one person pops up on the orange logo, the other thing is I'm the co-host of a podcast called the Creating, Living, and Making Podcast, or CLAMP for short.
Yeah, be sure to head over to listen to CLAMP as well. Different from this podcast, of course, but it's still great. And I think Morley and Adam would really appreciate it as well, I think. And thanks so much for coming on the show, Grant.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time as well, mate. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you're not following Grant, please head over, find him on Instagram, YouTube, and any other places on the intervals. And make sure you follow him and see what he's up to. If you need any links, they're in the show notes. If you want to be one of the cool kids and join the GA Nation, you can head over to Patreon. I'd love your support there. But otherwise, you can support me and all the guests that have been on this show and will be on this show by simply just singing this podcast's praises on another podcast, or just having me on as a guest on this other podcast, Clamp, to talk absolute shit. But more importantly, you can also support me by simply just sharing and reposting this podcast. Let people know it exists. If you got value from it, let people know that it exists. I think that's important. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. Please send your feedback to me at Garage Avenger on Instagram. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Woohoo, we're out.
Bye. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, there we go, man. It's done.